Planet. In a valley shaped like a sleeping hand where mist lingered in the mornings and the stars felt close enough to touch, there was a small, bustling community of animals called Willow Hollow. Willow Hollow had no fences or houses with chimneys. Instead, it had cozy burrows beneath roots, hollowed trunks wide enough for a fox to curl inside, Planet, and a marketplace of low branches and soft moss where everyone met at dawn. The animals of Willow Hollow had a way of living that suited the valley. They took pride in being dependable. Planet. The beavers managed the stream flow, building and repairing the dams. The rabbits tended the meadow, planting clover and remembering the best places to dry seeds. Planet. The owls kept watch at night, whispering weather warnings to the softer sleepers. Even the smallest beetles had tasks polishing the smooth stones that marked the paths. Planet. On the edge of Willow Hollow, in a warm hollow under a willow tree, lived a young badger named Bram. Bram had a striped snout, small bright eyes, Planet, and a grin that suggested he had too many ideas and not enough patience. Yeah. He loved to talk about grand things, inventions he would build, great journeys he would take, Planet, inventions he would make that would change the valley forever. Bram's head was full of plans. His front paws, however, were often full of excuses. Planet, you'll see, Bram would tell anyone who listened. I'll plant a garden that doubles the harvest. I'll invent a water wheel that runs on wind. Planet, He'd wave his paws and let the sentence trail. Excuses slipped into the spaces his actions should have filled. Planet, the well that needed fixing, couldn't wait for me. The seeds he'd planned to plant wouldn't sprout this season anyway, and the tools he needed were too old to trust. Across the stream lived Eloise, Planet, a badger a little older than Bram. She had the same banded fur and a patient sturdiness where Bram promised Eloise did. She tilled, sowed, and fixed, and in the seasons of soft rains, Planet, her patch of land flourished with vegetables and herbs that the entire hollow admired. One spring, after a particularly talkative winter, the Council of Willow Hollow called a meeting. Planet, the tallest oak in the center of the square, is where they gathered. Owls hung on low branches, hedgehogs rolled in, and everyone came with a fresh piece of fruit or a blossom. Planet. At the meeting, the Stream Council, led by Rowan the Beaver, spoke about the coming dry season. The rains will be late this year. Rowan said in his steady, splashing voice, Planet, we'll need to conserve water. The supply pond at the east rim is shallow. If we repair the cisterns and store more water, we'll be ready. There was a murmur of concern. Planet. The deer looked toward the trees they grazed. The frogs croaked softly. The council set a list of tasks: reinforce the pond embankment, collect clay for cistern repairs. Planet. Plant drought-resistant crops that would need less water, and most urgently, dig a new reservoir trench that would channel the winter melt more efficiently. Bram's ears perked up. Play a reservoir, a plan he could declare. He stepped forward, puffed his chest, and announced, I will dig the reservoir. A hopeful cheer rose among the younger animals. Planet, Bram's voice carried, and for a moment it seemed the empty promises might turn into good fortune. Then the head owl, Minerva, blinked slowly and asked, when will you start? Planet, Bram. In a bit, Bram said, I'll gather tools tomorrow, or maybe after the big breakfast. Minerva's gaze softened, but did not bend. We need work done today. Planet, the weather keeps no promises. The Bram promised again with a grin and a tilt, and he fled to the Willow Hollow where his plans waited. Planet, he told the willow itself, in case the tree wished to listen, of the reservoir's curve and how it would gleam in the moonlight. Later, Planet, he wandered to the stream bank and discussed the angle of the slope with the water as if the current could help him move the stones. Bram talked. He paced, Planet, and he imagined, and the list of real steps grew shorter by the hour. Eloise watched this from her garden. She wiped soil from her paws and picked a stubborn weed. Planet, she had no love for boasting. Instead, she loved lists, calendars, and the honest ache of a job well done. She called Bram over quietly. Start with one spade, she said. Planet, not with a plan in the sky. Bram laughed. It's easy, Eloise. I'll dig the largest trench you've ever seen. I'll find a better route for the water. Planet, you'll need more than dances with your ideas, Eloise replied. Dig 1 hour today, then dig one tomorrow. If you do that, Planet, in a month we'll have soil to line the new pond. Bram left, promising he would begin at dusk. At dusk, Planet, his paws were busy polishing the spade he had borrowed, but he didn't go to the trench. He found the spade too heavy, he told himself. And besides, Planet, the willow hummed a lullaby that required his attention. He watched fireflies, and before dawn he had crafted a new plan that required fewer steps. Days passed. Planet, the animals of the valley repaired what they could. The beavers tightened their dams, rabbits sowed the meadow with seeds that needed little water, and the owls patrolled the dark hours. Planet, Bram continued to make plans into excuse. He had a marvelous blueprint for a reservoir that would have stones engraved with the names of those who helped him. The names, of course, planet would sit in the stone he never quite hauled. One morning, when the sun was still a pale coin above the hill, rain that should have filled the supply ponds broke late and thin. Planet, the stream that usually sang through the hollow, ran lower than anyone remembered. The east cistern creaked like an old tortoise. In the meeting that followed, Planet, there was urgency in every voice. We cannot rely on hope, said Rowan with more force than his voice usually carried. The trench must be dug. Planet, the channel must be laid before the next dry week. Eloise stood. She pulled her sleeves. If a badger could have sleeves, right, and said simply, I will help with the trench. Planet, but we need many hands. Bram, will you come? Bram's ears twitched. He opened his mouth to speak and then closed it. There were a dozen reasons stacked behind his teeth. Planet, his spade was dull. He had thought of a better location. He had a task to tune a wheel he'd never built. Eloise waited. Bram's grin began to fold into something smaller. Planet, you can come or you can talk about coming, Eloise said gently. Both won't fit the trench. At that moment, a small sparrow named Pip hopped forward. Planet, Pip was a creature of tiny measures but enormous courage. Yeah. I'll help, she chirped. I'll fetch stones. I'll carry seeds. I'll do what I can. You will get tired, elderly tortoise. I know, Pip said, but I will start. Pip picked up sticks, gathered pebbles, and drove a small line. Planet, while Eloise and Rowan set the pace with hard, steady labor, rabbits dug, hedgehogs packed clay. Planet, and even the fox, sly though respected, brought a team of voles to shift the weight of heavy soil. Bram lingered at the edge, his claws tapped not in work but in thought. Planet, he heard the shovels scrape and felt the heat of effort in the air. The trench grew day by day like a new river of purpose. Bram's palms grew itchy with the need to speak. Planet and his plans felt foolish in the face of the real moving earth. Bram, Eloise called softly that evening as the last light bled away. If you have a plan, Planet, now is the time to make the tools and use them. Bram had one of those rare moments where he could have stepped forward and chosen. The valley seemed to bend its breath toward him. Planet, he took the spade in slow surprise as if a stranger had offered it and placed it beside him. Planet, that night Bram dreamed of a valley where every animal was a promise and every promise a stone. He woke before dawn with the weight of the night in his bones. Planet, the spade was heavy in his paws. For the first time he felt it was worth the sweat. He started small. He cleared a ledge, hauled a handful of pebbles, and filled a small dip. His back ached. Planet, the calluses that formed were honest stretched, and Bram kept at it. When his shoulders burned, he counted only the next scoop. Peep hopped and whistled. Planet, the voles sang a rhythm when they pushed a large slab downhill. Bram learned to pace. He learned that good plans bowed to honest labor. Weeks slipped by. The reservoir began to take shape. Planet, and the animals of Willow Hollow found themselves surprised. The old cisterns, once dribbling, now drank with a renewed thirst. All through the valley, plants perked. In the evenings, Planet, animals walked the new banks and laid a paw against the hard one stone as if blessing it. But all stories have friction. Planet, news traveled from beyond the hills that a drop further east had left a stray boar named Thatch in need. Planet, the boar was known, sometimes feared, for his booming laugh and fondness for easy spoils. Willow Hollow's leaders discussed whether to share water. Some suggested caution. Planet, the stores were only just recovering. Thatch, hearing of the valley's work, swaggered by one afternoon. So you dug a ditch? He snorted. You could have done so much more, Planet, but you didn't. I'll take what I need. Rows of ears lay back. Bram, dust on his paws, stood where he worked, feeling the new dent in his shoulders as a kind of armor. Planet, he wanted to say the valley's water was not a thing to squander. He wanted to show Thatch how they had toiled. But Thatch's laugh rolled like a storm. You dug, Thatch taunted. Smarter. I borrow, beg, take where the lazy leave it. The world owes me. Eloise came forward. She moved like a slow, steady tide and said, Planet, Willow Hollow helps those in need, but not at the cost of neglecting our home. We share fairly if you have the will to work. You have the place to do it. Thatch's eyes gleamed. Planet, work, he scoffed. Works for those who haven't learned to ask. A hush settled. Bram, whose shoulders had been trained to heaviness, felt his voice rise in the throat. Planet, trembling like a young twig. Work makes things last, he said. We dug this together. If you want water, you'll have to help keep it. The boar laughed harder. Planet, you'd have me dig. I'll leave your puddles in your moss. I'll find a richer place. Thatch left with a final flip of his tail and a promise to return by night, which, Planet, in the poaching tongue of his sort, meant he intended to take. Night came with the silver of a cautious moon. Bram lay awake, thinking of how easy it had been to talk rather than act. Planet, the reservoir slept beneath the stars, a thing of stones and soil and careful slopes. Bram rose and padded to the bank. Planet, he found the night quiet and the air full of the shallow sleep of satisfied labor. He touched the stone and felt the cool truth of it. In the hours before dawn, Planet, the valley woke to a clatter. Thatch had come not to work, but to steal. He had broken a small part of the embankment. Water hissed and threatened to spill like spilled salt. Panic spread. Planet, rabbits darted, frogs leaped, and a dozen small hands scrambled to hold a place in the world they had made. Bram ran. Planet. He ran without excusing the hurried pace as anything but what it was. A decision finally made. He joined paw to paw, claw to claw, and together they patched as the beavers hurled plank. Planet. The voles packed earth, and Eloy's steady voice organized the frantic energy into steps. Bram shoveled until his chest heaved. He used his shoulder to push a boulder into place. Planet. He worked until his paws bled, and the dawn came with a blush that warmed even the coldest stone. When the sun rose over Willow Hollow, the embankment held. The reservoir was safe. Planet. The animals of the valley stood muddy and tired, but with the pride of those who had refused to surrender their work to theft. Thatch was gone. Planet. Bram wanted to chase him with words that would bruise pride, but Eloise rested a hand paw on his shoulder and said quietly, "We did what had to be done." The Bram looked at his hands. Planet, they were cracked and stained, but not empty. In the weeks that followed, the valley healed what had been broken. The fields drank only when needed. Planet, they made plans to support neighbors beyond the hills with careful generosity. Bram never stopped talking about inventions, but his words were different now. Planet, they were hung on hooks of action. If Bram dreamed of a machine, he woke early to test an axle. If he spoke of a route to the next village, he measured the path and marked it. Planet. And in the evenings, when young animals gathered around the willow for stories, Bram told them not only of grand plans, but of the hours of pushing, the stinging of blisters, Planet, and the taste of honest bread after a long day. Planet. He told them of the thief who came because taking was easier than earning, and of the many small hands that would not let what they had built be taken away. Planet. The valley began to hum with a new song, the steady rhythm of doing. Children learned the names of tools. The elders taught how to mend and mend again. And Bram. Planet. Bram learned to greet the morning with hands ready and excuses closed like a door. But the valley had more to teach Bram, and more to test everyone's resolve. Planet. For in every place where effort grows, challenge follows. The winter would bring its own trials, and Bram's newfound industry would be needed in ways even he could not yet imagine. Planet. In Willow Hollow, the arrival of winter had always been a gentle thing. Snow rarely fell thick, and when it did, the flakes were soft as moth wings. Planet. But the year after the reservoir was saved, winter crept indifferently. Quiet, heavy, and with an intent that felt almost watchful. The first sign came before the frost itself. Planet. A stillness in the hills, birds that should have been migrating chirped uncertainly, circling in low loops over the valley. Planet. Wind that normally carried the scent of pine slowed as though tired. Even the stream song seemed cautious, as if choosing every ripple with care. The elders noticed it first. Planet. Minerva the owl gathered the council. "We must prepare," she said. "The signs warn of a long freeze. Food will be scarce. Water may lock itself in ice." Planet. "We must work before winter settles its full weight of work." The animals nodded with understanding they had earned the previous season. They had learned that to survive is to prepare. Planet. And to prepare is to do. But one creature did not nod, not because he disagreed, but because he was too busy counting new calluses on his paws. Bram. This winter, Bram was different. Planet. Truly different. He had become the valley's early riser and late sleeper, the badger whose paws always smelled faintly of wood or damp soil. His eyes had changed too. Planet. They carried less glitter of dreaming and more gleam of purpose. Eloise noticed it every day. She often hid a smile when he walked past with dirt on his cheek, absorbed in his tasks. His learning, she whispered to Rowan the beaver one morning. Rowan nodded, flattening a clay slab. "He is." Hard work steadies the wandering mind, but Rowan, wise as he was, Planet, did not know what Bram was secretly building. Bram's big idea after the incident with Thatch, Bram promised himself never to be unprepared again. Planet, he wanted a tool, a machine, something that would help the valley even when paws were tired or weather turned cruel. He called it the Winter Runner. In reality, Planet was a strange contraption of wood, wheels, 2 paddles, and a long handle. To anyone else, it looked like a bundle of sticks arranged by a confused squirrel. Planet. But Bram believed it could break ice, clear snow, and even push food along the paths without exhausting the smaller animals. He worked in secret behind the willow grove, testing axles. Planet. Replacing wheels, sanding planks. Some days he failed 20 times before getting something to turn. Some days he failed 100 times, but he no longer walked away with excuses. Planet. Now he walked away with solutions. Still, despite determination, he was scared. What if it breaks? He muttered one night, tapping a wheel that wobbled. What if it's useless? Planet. What if? He stopped himself. Excuses. The old Bram. He shook his head firmly. No, do the work. Fix it. He tightened the joint again. But the Winter Runner remained a secret. Planet. He wanted to show it to the valley only when it was perfect. The freeze arrives early, winter arrived 3 weeks ahead of the usual calendar. It came not as a whisper, Planet, not as a gentle chill, but as a silent wave sweeping through the valley overnight. When the animals woke, everything was white, branches bowed beneath thick frost. Planet. The reservoir's edges had begun to crust with ice. The stream, normally lively, stiffened with a thin layer of crystal. The ground crackled under every step. Planet, even Minerva blinked twice in surprise. This is earlier than expected. The valley immediately fell into motion. Beavers reinforced dams so water wouldn't freeze solid. Planet. Rabbits rushed to store seeds. Squirrels buried nuts under every stump. Bram joined them, carrying tools and wood, fixing broken carts, clearing paths. For the first time, Planet, and no one had to ask Bram to help. He did. Pip the sparrow fluttered beside him. I like the new you, she chirped. The new me. Bram laughed, wiping frost from his nose. Yes! Planet, before you only talked. Bram blushed beneath his fur. I guess it feels good to help. Eloise overheard. Planet, it feels even better when winter doesn't crush us, she added. Everyone chuckled, but by day 3, the chuckles stopped, the freeze deepened, the reservoir sealed under thick ice. Planet, the ground no longer cracked, it was solid as stone, and the food stored for winter, it wasn't enough. Planet, not because the valley had been lazy, but because winter had arrived far before the harvest was complete. Fear settled over Willow Hollow. We will make it, Eloise said. But we must ration everything, and we must find a way to free water from the reservoir every day. Rowan looked grim. If the ice grows thicker, Planet, even my strongest tail won't break it. Bram froze. He knew what this meant. Winter Runner, his invention, his responsibility. But it wasn't ready. Planet, he had wanted another month to test it, to smooth the frame, to correct the clumsy steering, to adjust the blade. I can't show this yet, he whispered. Planet, it's not good enough. But the valley needed it now. He knew it, a choice between fear and work. That night, Bram sat alone in the grove, Planet staring at the Winter Runner under a sheet of frost-covered leaves. It won't work, he muttered. It'll break. Everyone will laugh, or worse, Planet, someone will get hurt. A familiar voice cut through the cold. You're talking like the old Bram? Oh, Eloise. She stepped closer, breath clouding the air. Planet, how long have you been building this? Bram swallowed. Months. And it helps with winter tasks? It's supposed to. Planet, but it's not perfect. Nothing useful begins perfect. Bram looked up. Eloise placed a steady paw on his shoulder. You worked hard on this. Planet, harder than I've ever seen you work. That means something. Bring it to the council. Show them. Let us help you fix what needs fixing. Bram looked at the Winter Runner again. Planet, he remembered the old days of excuses, of talking instead of doing, of dreaming instead of trying. He clenched his paws. Tomorrow, he said. Planet, I'll show them tomorrow. The Winter Runner revealed at dawn. The council gathered, breath fogging the air, frost shining like powdered silver over everything. Planet, Bram arrived late, dragging something large, clunky, and wrapped in woven leaves. Animals whispered. Planet, what is he doing? Is it another speech? Is he bringing a giant basket? Bram gulped and pulled off the coverings. The Winter Runner gleamed in the pale morning light. Planet, wheels, a wooden blade, a lever system, a curved front for cutting snow, and a long handle for pushing or pulling. Silence fell. Rowan the beaver stepped closer and tapped the wood. Planet, Nerva tilted her head. Pip hopped around it 3 times. Eloise folded her arms proudly. Finally, Rowan asked, what is it? Bram exhaled deeply. Planet, it's a multi-purpose winter machine. It can clear snow, break thin ice, and push supplies without tiring smaller animals. I built it, and I tested most of it. It's not perfect. Planet. The council was stunned. Bram braced for doubt, for disappointment. Instead, Minerva said softly, show us. The Bram didn't hesitate. Planet. He pushed the Winter Runner toward the reservoir. The wheels wobbled, squeaked, and complained, but they moved. The other animals followed, curious and hopeful. Planet. At the edge of the frozen reservoir, Bram positioned the wooden blade, took a deep breath, and forced the handle down. Shirake, the blade punched through the ice. The reservoir groaned. Planet then sighed as water rushed upward through the break. Animals gasped. Pip cheeped loudly in excitement. Rowan grinned. It works. Bram's face burned with pride. Planet. They carried buckets, filled barrels, and let the Winter Runner widen the opening. Even the smallest creatures helped. For the first time since winter arrived, Planet, hope spread through the valley. But winter had one more test for them. The blizzard of the Lost Path. 3 days later, a blizzard came. The worst Willow Hollow had ever seen. Planet, winds screamed across the valley. Snow fell so thick it felt like the sky was dissolving. Trees bent under the weight of white. Paths vanished. Hums nearly disappeared under soft. Planet, dangerous drifts. By nightfall, the valley was smothered. No one could move more than a few steps. No one could see beyond a paw's length. Planel. Pip the sparrow never returned from gathering pine needles. Her nest was empty. Her tiny footprints led into the storm and disappeared. Planet. The search, the council called out across the storm. Pip, where are you? Answer us! But the wind ate every voice. Me must search, Eloise said. Planet, her own fear hidden under the firmness of her tone. But how? Rowan asked. The paths are gone. The snow is deep. We can barely walk. Bram lifted his chin. Planet, he said. What push? They followed his gaze to the Winter Runner. But Bram Minerva said, Planet, the snow is too thick. That's why it has a blade. Bram replied, that's why I built it, to help when things get too hard. Eloise nodded. Planet, we don't have time for doubt. Pip is out there. Rowan didn't need further convincing. He and Bram grabbed the winter runner. Hedgehogs and voles climbed aboard with blankets. Planet all spread their wings to guide from above. Alois took the rear, pushing with steady strength, and into the blizzard they went. The path they carved, the storm clawed at their faces. Planet, with snow stung their eyes, wheels jammed. The blade got stuck countless times. But Bram refused to stop. Every time the wheels clogged, he dug them free. Every time the blade jammed, he adjusted the angle. Every time he stumbled, he stood again, step by step, foot by foot, blade by blade. A path emerged. They reached the pine grove where Pip had last been seen. Planted, where they moved deeper. Suddenly Minerva hooted sharply. There, near a fallen branch half buried in snow, was a trembling little body. Pip. Planet. Bram ran ahead, scooped her gently, wrapped her in a warm cloth, and placed her onto the winter runner. We've got you, he whispered. Planet, you're safe now. For the first time that winter, Bram cried, tears freezing on his fur. But they weren't tears of fear, they were tears of relief. Planet, the return journey was slow but determined. The winter runner cut through drifts taller than foxes. Eloise never stopped pushing. Rowan never stopped clearing. Pip whispered weakly, Planet, I knew you'd come. And Bram whispered back, because you always worked hard for us. Now it's our turn. Winter's lesson. By dawn, they reached Willow Hollow. Planet, the storm beat a calm. The valley stirred as news spread. Pip is safe. They saved her. Bram led them through. And in the heart of the hollow, Planet, Bram placed Pip in her nest, wrapped her in moss, and waited until she smiled. Eloise approached him quietly. She said, you didn't just work hard. You saved us all. Bram shook his head softly. No, we saved each other. Minerva nodded. And your invention saved the valley. Bram looked at the winter runner. Planet, the wheels were nearly destroyed. The blade was bent. The handle was cracked, and it had done its job, and he had done his. The blizzard passed. Winter held on a little longer. Plenty, but Willow Hollow was ready, and Bram, he was no longer a dreamer full of excuses. He was a doer, a worker, a builder, a friend. Planet, but the valley's greatest test was still to come. One that would challenge their unity, their strength, and Bram's heart more than winter ever could. Planet, winter slowly began to loosen its grip on Willow Hollow. Snow softened. The stream cracked open in thin silver lines. Birdsong returned in hesitant notes like tiny bells. Planet. By the time the sun rose higher and earlier each morning, the valley seemed to breathe again. The animals felt proud. They had survived the harshest winter in their history. Together, Planet. And the hero of the season, whether he liked the title or not, was Bram. He spent his mornings repairing the winter runner, his afternoons helping Rowan strengthen the reservoir walls. Planet, and his evenings bringing warm leaves to Pip. Despite the exhaustion, Bram felt happier than he ever had. For the first time in his life, he trusted his own work more than his own words. Planet, but far beyond the valley, in the dry lands past the hills, one creature did not share in Willow Hollow's peace. Thatch the Boar. Planet, the same boar who had once tried to steal the reservoir's water, the same boar who mocked Bram, was now watching the valley with hungry, jealous eyes. Planet, Thatch's trouble the drylands were becoming worse each month. Water holes shrank, trees cracked, grass turned gray, whole herds migrated earlier, leaving the region barren. This Planet, Thatch survived by bullying smaller animals and stealing whatever water he could find, but even stealing became difficult. There was nothing left to take. One scorching afternoon, Planet, he sat near a cracked mud pit and grunted angrily. That cursed valley, he muttered. They always have water. They worked and planned. Luff, he crushed a dry twig between his tusks. But now they enjoy spring, and I suffer. Thatch was not foolish, just lazy and proud. Planet, he knew why Willow Hollow had survived hard work. Unity, planning, all the things he had spent his life avoiding. But why work? He growled, Planet, when I can take from those who did. His eyes narrowed. I'll go back. This time, Planet. A peaceful morning broken, Bram was repairing the reservoir's wooden guardrail when the ground trembled. Not from thunder, not from construction. Planet, not from any familiar noise. A single heavy footstep, then another, then a rumbling grunt. Minerva swooped down from her tree. Bram, she warned. Planet, prepare yourself. Emerged through the melting snowbanks, larger and rougher than before. His fur was matted, and his tusks cracked, but his eyes were sharp with determination. Planet, animals froze. Parents pulled their little ones close. Even the beavers backed away slowly. Thatch snorted and stomped to the reservoir's edge. Well, he called loudly. Planet, still hoarding all the good things in life. I see. Eloise stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but her stance firm. This is not hoarding. We worked for it. We suffered for it. Planet, we built that. Oh, I remember. Thatch sneered and pointed a hoof at Bram, and I remember him pretending to be a hero. Bram stiffened. Planet. He wasn't scared for himself, but for his valley. We are not here to fight, Bram said carefully, but we won't let you harm the reservoir. Thatch laughed, a deep Planet cruel sound. I don't want to harm it, he rumbled. I want to take it, all of it. Gaspies rippled through the animals. Rowan shouted, Planet. You can't take a reservoir! Thatch lowered his tusk dangerously. You'd be surprised what I can take. The boar's demand, Thatch stomped closer to Bram. You have water, Planet owned. So give me half the reservoir, half. The request was impossible. Sharing some was reasonable. Sharing half would destroy Willow Hollow. Minerva spoke firmly. Planet, what offered you shelter, food, and work last year? You refused. You mocked us. You only wanted to take. Thatch snorted. That was then. This is now. Eloy stepped forward. Planet, but not by giving you half of everything we worked for. We can send water in barrels every weekend. I didn't ask for barrels. Thatch thundered. Plan, I said, Aelf. The valley fell silent. Thatch glared at Bram. You built this trench last year, didn't you? Then you can build it just as easily. The Bram clenched his fists. Planet. The ground under him felt small, but his resolve did not. No, Thatch blinked. What did you say? I said no. Bram repeated louder. Planet. This reservoir belongs to everyone in Willow Hollow. We worked for it. We bleed for it. Pip almost died this winter trying to gather food for us. Planet, you don't get to take half of it because you're too proud to work. Thatch's eyes flashed with anger. You think you're better than me now. His voice shook the air. You? Planet, the badger who used to make excuses for everything. Bram did not flinch. I'm not better, he said, but I am different, and you can be too. Work with us, Thatch? Planet, help us reinforce the hill streams. Help us plant. Help us build. Then you'll have a share in all of it. The valley watched with breathless hope. For a moment, Planet, Thatch's expression softened. For a moment, he hesitated. But pride is a dangerous master, he snarled. Work with you. Never. Then, with a violent swing of his head, Planet, he rammed the reservoir wall. The crack echoed like lightning. The beavers screamed. Water sloshed dangerously. Animals scattered. A deep fracture zagged through the wall. Planet, Thatch backed up for another charge. No, Bram yelled, running forward. He grabbed a rope, leaped onto a log, and swung it across Thatch's path. Thatch stumbled, pecting resistance. Bram held the rope tight, feet digging into the dirt, muscles burning. Estio, Bram roared. Won't let you destroy everything. Thatch turned with fury. You can't stop me. He charged again, heavier, louder, until Eloise blocked his path. Planet. She stood like a mountain, unbreakable. You will harm no one here, she said coldly. Thatch skidded, surprised at her strength. Rowan and the beavers moved in behind her. Planet. The foxes formed a line. The deer stood firm. For the first time, Thatch realized he was outnumbered, outmatched, and out of excuses. His rage faltered. Why, he growled weakly, Planet. Why won't you just give me the water? Because you want the reward without the work, Eloy said. And life doesn't work like that. Bram added softly, Planet. You can stay, you can work with us. We'll share everything, but only if you try. Thatch's chest heaved, his eyes darted, his breath steamed in choke puffs. He had a choice, Planet, continue ruining everything, or finally face the truth he had avoided all his life. The valley waited. A long, heavy silence filled the air. Then Thatch collapsed onto his knees. Planet, he swallowed. I don't know how to work like all of you. His voice trembled. For the first time, he sounded small. Planet. Eloy stepped closer and placed a gentle paw on his shoulder. That's why we teach a new beginning. It took time, more time than anyone expected. Thatch was stubborn, Planet impatient, but Bram and Eloise were patient. They taught him how to carry stones, how to dig without destroying soil, how to gather wood, how to fix simple structures. At first, Planet, Thatch made excuses. This rock is too big. Dirt is too sticky. My back hurts. I'm not built for this. Bram smiled because he recognized all those excuses. Planet, Waffakins, he said, and if I can change, so can you. Slowly, painfully slowly. Thatch improved. He carried heavier loads. He dug straighter lines. Planet, he listened instead of arguing. He tried. And in Willow Hollow, trying meant something. Pip brought him berries. The squirrels cheered when he lifted a heavy beam. Planet, the beavers rewarded him with fresh river plant. For the first time in his life, Thatch felt included. One evening, after a long day of work, Thatch sat beside Bram and sighed. Planet, is this why you work so hard? He asked quietly. Bram smiled softly. Yes, work gives you a place. Excuses only leave you behind. Thatch nodded slowly. Planet, I want a place, he whispered. Then keep working, Bram replied. We're with you. And for the first time, Thatch believed him. A valley-transformed spring arrived fully. Planet flowers bloomed in colorful waves. The reservoir sparkled in sunlight. Animals played, built, and shared meals. Thatch became a respected worker. Eloise gained even more admiration. Planet. Bram became the valley's official builder and engineer. The winter runner was repaired, strengthened, and displayed proudly in the center square. Rowan carved a plaque beneath it. Planet. the tool built by hard work and the tool that taught hard work. And every animal in the valley read it and smiled. Planet. But one last test remained, one that would prove the final moral of the story. A test that would require Bram, Thatch, Eloy's Planet, and the entire valley to choose work over excuses one last time. Spring warmed the valley. Birds returned. Grass grew soft. The reservoir brimmed with clear water. Plant Willow Hollow felt safer than ever. Animals worked together. They shared meals. Thatch had begun smiling, shy, awkward smiles, but smiles nonetheless. Bram kept making tools. Planet. Small machines, carts, repair kits, and even taught young rabbits simple engineering. Eloise proudly joked, Bram now makes two things, Planet inventions and blisters. But a year of harsh winter had weakened something deep beneath the ground, something no one could see. The valley was about to face its greatest challenge. Planet. One that would decide who truly believed in hard work and who only claimed to. The strange tremors, it began with a faint vibration under the soil, barely noticeable. Planet. Rowan the beaver felt it first while repairing a wooden water gate. He tapped the ground. The next day, the vibrations grew stronger. Planet. Bram felt them through his paws while pushing a wheelbarrow. What is that? And Eloise noticed them while walking home at dusk. Minerva felt them through her perch. Stood it. No one imagined the truth. It was the mountain snow melting too fast, too early, too violently, and all that water was rushing downhill. Planet gathering strength like a sleeping giant waking with a roar. The warning at dawn, a fox scout raced into Willow Hollow. Tishi River, the mountain river, it's overflowing. Planet, a flood is coming. Panic tore through the valley. Animals froze. Mothers grabbed their children. Burrows trembled with fear. Minerva flapped down and shouted. Everyone remained calm. Planet, we will act, not panic. Rowan's voice cut through the chaos. We need to reinforce the reservoir walls. If the flood breaks through, Planet, the entire valley could be destroyed. Thatch stepped forward. I'll help. The crowd went silent. Then Bram shouted, good, we all will. Eloise began organizing. Rabbits, gather sand. Bring logs. Foxes. Alert every family. Owls, watch the water level. Bram turned to Thatch. Planet, we need huge stones from the eastern hill. I'll bring them. Thatch boomed. This time, no doubt, no hesitation. He ran. Planet. A race against time. The floodwaters were still far, but the rumbling grew louder. Bram and Rowan examined the reservoir wall. Rowan whispered, Planet, if that wall falls, everything falls. Bram nodded grimly. We strengthen the base first. He grabbed tools. Eloise coordinated hauling. Planet, the beavers swam to reinforce underwater cracks. Thatch returned dragging a stone almost the size of himself. Everyone gasped. How did he carry that? Peep squeaked. Thatch panted. Planet. He dropped the stone and ran for another without waiting for praise. Bram looked at Eloise. He's changed. You helped him change? She said. Pie darkened. The trembling grew. The flood was close. The first wave, suddenly, oh boom! A thunderous crash echoed through the hills. Planet. Water exploded from the forest edge like a charging beast. A roar that drowned every sound. Oh, they fire! Shouted and all. Animals scrambled. Planet. The first wave hit the lower stream, shaking the entire valley. Hailed, THE like, more Kimmy. Thatch dragged boulder after boulder. Eloise hammered stakes into the soil. Planet. Rowan pushed planks against the weakening wall. Bram reinforced wooden supports with every tool he had. But the water was rising fast. Planet. The breaking point, the second wave slammed into the reservoir wall. Kiarfe! A large fracture opened. The animal screamed. Pip shouted, the wall! Planet. But Bram froze, not from fear, but from calculation. He whispered, I need the winter runner. Eloise blinked. Bram, you can't use that now! Crushed. Bram said, it has the only blade strong enough to redirect water. If I angle it into the breach, I can lessen the pressure. It's Planet. Minerva warned, it's too dangerous. Thatch shouted, I'll do it. No, Bram said firmly. This is my invention, Planet, my responsibility. Eloise stepped closer. You won't survive the wave. Bram, he looked at her quietly. I survived my excuses. I can survive this too. He ran. Planet. The final push, Bram dragged the winter runner to the cracking wall. Rumbling thunder shook the ground. The third wave was moments away. He positioned the runner, wheels sinking into mud. Planet, blade facing the brandle brace. Thatch ran to help. I'll hold the left side. Eloise ran to the right. I'll brace the handle. Bram took the center. Everyone rang. Bram shouted. R.E. Thatch roared. R.E. Eloise answered. Bram pushed. The winter runner dug into the breach, angling the incoming water upward and sideways. The flood hit. Oh! Water exploded into the valley, but not straight. The angled blade diverted the force. Planet, the wall trembled but held. Animals cheered, but the joy didn't last. The winter runner began shaking violently. The blade bent. The wheels cracked. The frame splintered. Bram held it with all his strength. Thatch pushed until his legs trembled. Eloise braced until her claws sank into the wood. Don't I let go? Bram yelled. But the flood wasn't done. The biggest yet. The collapse, it hit like a hammer striking glass. CRAS! The blade split, the handle snapped, the entire Winter Runner shattered into pieces. Planet, the shockwave threw Bram backward. He slammed into the mud, gasping for breath. Be where I am. Eloise screamed. Thatch barreled toward him and shielded him from the water with his own body. Planet, the fragments of the Winter Runner floated away. Bram's heart broke, but he had no time to mourn. The wall was still standing. Minerva shouted from above. THEP has to TYL Asawadi Aldamas sobbed with relief. Bram sat up slowly. Eloise rushed to him and held him tightly. You scared me, she whispered. Planvally, you saved all of us again. Bram shook his head. No, we saved all of us. Together, after the storm by dusk, the floodwaters settled. Planet, the reservoir remained intact. Homes were safe. Families reunited. The valley stood strong. They did not celebrate with a feast. They were too tired, too emotional. Instead, Planet, the animals sat together near the reservoir, watching the sunset glow across the cracked but standing wall. Bram gazed at the remains of the Winter Runner. Pip fluttered onto his shoulder. Planet, it may be broken, she said softly, but it saved the valley. But he smiled sadly. It wasn't perfect, but it worked when we needed it. Eloise nudged him. Planet, that's because you worked on it. Thatch sat heavily on the ground beside Bram. I never thought I'd say this, he grumbled, but thank you, Planet, all of you. The foxes chuckled. The rabbits cheered for Thatch. The beavers gave him river plants again. For the first time in his life, Thatch didn't feel like an outsider. Planet, he felt like one of them. The moral becomes clear as stars appeared above the valley. Minerva spoke to everyone gathered. Let this day be remembered. Not for the flood, Planet, not for the danger, but for the truth we all witness. A hard work beats excuses. Every time she looked at Bram, you proved it first, then Thatch learned it. And today, Planet, the entire valley lived it. Bram lowered his head humbly. I only did what needed to be done. Eloise smiled. Planet. And that's what hard work truly is, doing what needs to be done, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when it's easier to walk away. The valley fell quiet. Planet. Then Pip chirped brightly, Bram. We builded another Winter Runner. Bram laughed. Not just one. We'll build 3. One for snow, one for floods, Planet, and one for carrying food. Thatch grinned. I'll help build them. The valley cheered. The night sky sparkled above them, and Willow Hollow felt stronger than ever. Planet, a valley that works. Together months later, Willow Hollow was transformed. New channels guided water safely. Fresh tools lined the workshop Bram built. Planet, Thatch became the strongest worker on the valley team. Pip led the scouts with pride. Eloise harvested the richest garden in years. Planet. And in the center of the valley stood a new Winter Runner. Larger, stronger, beautifully crafted. A plaque beside it read this, built by many paws, guided by brave hearts. Plaque powered by hard work. Ajay, whenever young animals asked about it, Bram told them the same thing. Easy excuses build nothing. Hard work builds everything. And Willow Hollow lived by that truth for generations.